And your wristwatch. Now, before I count to 3, please, take everything, just don't. Shut up and bring it out, or we will show you pepper tonight.
Hey, leave him alone.
You want trouble too? Back off.
Ole, thief, somebody help, thief!
Hey, all right, get back.
Sir, are you okay? Can you hear me?
Who are you?
Just wait here, help is coming.
Amara Ezekwesili was 23 years old, and on any given day, she was invisible to the world she served. She worked as a live-in maid in the sprawling Ikoyi mansion of Chief Obinna Madueke, a ruthless businessman known across Lagos for his cutthroat tactics and his complete disregard for the people who worked beneath him. Amara's days began at 4:30 in the morning and rarely ended before midnight. She cooked, cleaned, ran errands, and endured the casual cruelty of a household that saw her not as a person, but as a function. Someone whose only purpose was to serve without complaint. She endured all of this for one reason. Her mother, Mama Blessing, was battling a severe case of diabetes back in their hometown in Abia State, a condition that required constant medication, regular hospital visits, and money that Amara's small monthly salary of 35,000 naira could barely stretch to cover. Amara sent almost everything she earned back home, keeping only enough for transportation and the barest necessities. She had once dreamed of studying nursing, a dream that felt as distant and unreachable as the moon from where she now stood, scrubbing another man's floors at midnight. That particular night, Amara had been sent on a late errand by Madame Chinelo, delivering forgotten documents to a business associate's house nearby, which was the only reason she found herself walking that dark service road at almost midnight, the same road where fate had decided to test the depth of her courage. What Amara did not know, as she swung that dustbin lid to save a stranger's life, was that the man she rescued was Daniel Williams, one of the most respected and wealthy businessmen in Lagos, CEO of Williams Energy Holdings, a company worth over 80 billion naira. And what Daniel did not know was that the woman who saved him disappeared into the night, not out of modesty but out of fear of questions she could not afford to answer, fear of a household that would punish her for the attention, fear of a world that had taught her that people like her were never meant to be seen. Daniel Williams survived that night with only minor injuries, a cut lip, bruised ribs, and a mind that could not stop replaying the image of a young woman in a worn cardigan running toward armed robbers with nothing but a dustbin lid and raw courage. The police report that followed his statement contained no name for his rescuer, only a vague description: a young woman, slim-build, wearing a maid's uniform beneath a faded cardigan. It was not enough for the police to act on, but it was enough to consume Daniel's every waking thought. Daniel Williams had built his empire from nothing. His father had been a mechanic in Surulere, and Daniel had clawed his way through university on scholarships and sheer determination before building Williams Energy Holdings into one of Nigeria's most respected companies. He understood struggle. He understood what it meant to be overlooked. And he could not accept that the woman who had risked her life for a complete stranger would simply vanish into anonymity. He hired a private investigator, a sharp, methodical woman named Funke Adisa, and gave her a single, seemingly impossible task: find the woman in the worn cardigan who had saved his life on that dark Lekki service road. For nearly 3 weeks, Funke combed through security TV footage from nearby businesses, interviewed residents along the service road, and slowly pieced together a trail. It led her, eventually, to a security guard who recognized the woman in the footage, not by name, but by the direction she had run, toward the grand estates of Ikoyi, where many of Lagos's wealthiest families lived. The trail eventually led Funke to the gates of the Madueke mansion, and to a devastating discovery that would leave Daniel stunned beyond words. The woman who had saved his life was not simply a maid working for strangers. She was working in the household of Chief Obinna Madueke, Daniel's own business partner, in a multi-billion naira oil distribution venture. But Funke's investigation uncovered something even more urgent. she learned that on the very day she confirmed Amara's identity, the young maid was in the middle of a crisis of her own, one that threatened to destroy everything Amara had worked so hard to protect. That same afternoon, chaos had erupted inside the Maduike mansion. Madame Chinello's expensive diamond bracelet, a gift from her husband worth several million naira, had gone missing from her bedroom dresser. Within minutes, suspicion turned, as it always seemed to in that household, toward the household staff, and specifically, toward Amara. Madame Chinello, pointing at Amara, said, "It is you. Nobody else goes into my room to clean except you. Where is my bracelet? Where have you hidden it?" Amara responded, pleading, "Madam, I swear on my mother's life, I did not touch your bracelet. I only cleaned the room this morning like I always do." Chief Maduike, addressing his security, ordered them search her room. Search her belongings. If she stole from this house, she will face the full weight of the law. Amara stood frozen, humiliated in front of the entire household staff, many of whom whispered and stared, some with sympathy, others with the quiet relief of people grateful that suspicion had fallen on someone else. Security guards marched into her small, sparse room, tearing through her few belongings, searching for evidence of a crime she did not commit. Nothing was found, because there was nothing to find. But Chief Maduike, unwilling to let the matter go without a resolution that satisfied his wife's fury, declared that Amara would be dismissed immediately, without pay for her final 2 weeks, and without a reference for future employment. A decision that would make it nearly impossible for her to find work in any respectable household again. Madame Chinello ordered, "Pack your things and leave this house before evening. And don't think of asking anyone in this neighborhood for work. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of thief you are." It was at this exact moment, as Amara stood at the mansion's gate, disgraced, unemployed, and facing the terrifying reality of how she would now afford her mother's medication, that a convoy of expensive vehicles pulled into the compound. Daniel, walking toward her, said, "It's you. You're the woman who saved my life." Amara, wiping her tears, responded, "Sir, I don't understand." Chief Maduike and Madame Chinello emerged from the house, equally stunned to see Daniel Williams, their powerful business partner, standing in their compound, addressing their disgraced former maid with such urgency and familiarity. Chief Maduike, confused, she asked Daniel, "What brings you here? Is there a problem with our venture?" Daniel, turning to face Chief Maduike, his voice hardening, he said, "The problem, Obina, is that this young woman saved my life 3 weeks ago during an armed robbery. And now I find her being thrown out of your house like garbage. I want to know exactly what is happening here." Madame Chinello, flustered but unwilling to back down, quickly explained the missing bracelet, insisting that Amara must have stolen it. But Daniel, a man who had built his empire on careful attention to detail and an unshakable instinct for dishonesty, was not satisfied with her explanation. Daniel responded, calm but authoritative, "Before anyone is accused of theft in my presence, I want to see your security footage. Every room in a house this size, owned by a man as cautious as Obina, surely has cameras." Chief Maduike, cornered and unable to refuse without appearing suspicious himself, reluctantly ordered his head of security to pull the footage from the hallway camera outside Madame Chinello's bedroom. What the footage revealed changed everything. Vivian, Madame Chinello's niece who had been visiting for the week, had taken the bracelet herself, likely to sell it and fund her extravagant lifestyle, a lifestyle her aunt had unknowingly been subsidizing for years. Confronted with the undeniable footage, Vivian broke down and confessed, revealing the bracelet hidden inside a shoe in her travel bag. The room fell into stunned silence. Madame Chinello, moments earlier so certain of Amara's guilt, now stood exposed as a woman who had humiliated an innocent person without a shred of real evidence, guided entirely by prejudice against someone she considered beneath her. Daniel, turning to Amara, his voice gentle now, said, "I am deeply sorry for what you endured today. This should never have happened to you." Amara, still processing everything, responded, "Thank you, sir, but I only did what anyone would have done that night." Her humility, even in the face of such vindication, struck Daniel deeply. Here was a woman who had risked her life for a stranger, endured public humiliation for a crime she did not commit, and still refused to seek pity or advantage from the situation. If you have ever been falsely accused, if you have ever been overlooked, despite your integrity, I need you to subscribe to this channel right now, because what Daniel Williams does next will show you that true recognition, though sometimes delayed, always eventually finds those who deserve it. Stay with me, because Amara's story is only just beginning. Daniel insisted on driving Amara to a proper hotel that evening, giving her time to rest while he arranged for her belongings to be collected from the Maduike mansion. The following morning, he invited her to his office, not the mansion, not a private residence, but his professional headquarters, a gesture of respect that was not lost on Amara. Daniel to Amara, you saved my life. Without your courage, I would not be sitting here today. I want to reward you properly, a financial gift substantial enough to change your life and your mother's life completely. Amara looked at the draft for a long moment. Then, to Daniel's genuine surprise, she gently pushed it back across the desk. Amara said, "Sir, I am deeply grateful for your kindness, but I cannot accept this money. What I did that night, I did because it was right, not because I wanted a reward. If I take this, it would feel like I was being paid for saving your life, and that is not something I ever wanted payment for." Daniel, stunned, responded, "Amara, most people in your position would not hesitate to accept this. Your mother's medical bills, your own future, this money could solve every problem you have." Amara responded, "I understand, sir, and I am not too proud to accept help. But there is a difference between help freely given and payment for a life. I would rather struggle honestly than feel like I sold my kindness for money." Daniel sat back in his chair, genuinely moved. In his years of building an empire, he had encountered countless people eager to exploit any advantage, any connection, any opportunity for personal gain. Amara's refusal was unlike anything he had experienced, not false modesty, but a genuine conviction that had clearly been shaped by a lifetime of choosing integrity over convenience. It was in that moment that Daniel made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives. If Amara would not accept money as payment, he would instead invest in her future, not as a transaction, but as a genuine opportunity to help her build the life she had always dreamed of. Daniel said to Amara, "I will not force money into your hands, but let me ask you this. If nothing was standing in your way, no money problems, no family obligations holding you back, what would you want to do with your life?" Amara, hesitant at first, then honest, responded, "I always wanted to study nursing, sir. I wanted to help people who are sick, the way I wished someone could have helped my mother more easily when her condition first began." Daniel smiled, the first genuine smile Amara had seen from him since their conversation began. "Then that is exactly what we will do. I am offering you a full scholarship to study nursing at any university of your choosing in Nigeria. I will also arrange for your mother to be relocated to Lagos, to a comfortable home, with access to the best diabetes specialists in the country. This is not payment for saving my life, Amara. This is an investment in who you already are." True to his word, within 2 months, Daniel had arranged everything. Mama Blessing was relocated to a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom bungalow in Magodo, Lagos, close to a leading diabetes treatment center. Amara secured admission into the University of Lagos's nursing program, her tuition, accommodation, and living expenses fully covered. But Daniel did not stop there. Recognizing Amara's natural compassion and her deep understanding of what it meant to struggle without support, He offered her something even more significant, a position managing a charitable foundation he had quietly established years earlier, one that provided medical assistance and educational scholarships to underprivileged families across Lagos State. Daniel explaining to Amara, "I started this foundation 5 years ago, but I have never had someone who truly understood the people we are trying to help. Not from research, not from reports, but from lived experience. I believe you would run this foundation better than anyone I could hire from a corporate background." Amara, overwhelmed but determined, responded, "Sir, I will not let you down. I promise you that." Amara balanced her nursing studies with her growing responsibilities at the Williams Foundation, and within 18 months, under her leadership, the foundation's reach expanded dramatically, doubling the number of families receiving medical assistance and tripling the number of scholarships awarded to students who reminded her, in every way, of the girl she used to be. Word of Amara's remarkable story, the maid who saved a billionaire's life and refused his money, only to be given something far more valuable, began to spread across Lagos's social circles. What had once been a story of humiliation and false accusation transformed into a story that inspired admiration and, for some, uncomfortable reflection. Chief Maduike and Madame Chinelo, who had once thrown Amara out like garbage, now found themselves facing whispered judgment at the very social events they once dominated. Their business venture with Daniel, strained by the incident, eventually dissolved entirely, as Daniel quietly redirected his partnerships toward more principled associates. Amara graduated from her nursing program with distinction, but by then, her role at the Williams Foundation had grown into something far larger than anyone had initially imagined. She was no longer simply managing charitable disbursements. She was designing entire community health initiatives, partnering with hospitals across Lagos and Ogun states to provide free medical camps in underserved communities. Throughout this remarkable rise, Daniel and Amara's relationship had deepened gradually, built not on gratitude or obligation, but on genuine respect, shared values, and countless hours spent working together toward a cause they both believed in deeply. Neither rushed toward romance, both understanding that what they were building required a foundation as solid as the one Amara herself had learned to value. But just as Amara's life seemed to be reaching a beautiful equilibrium, her mother healthy and comfortable, her career flourishing, her bond with Daniel growing into something neither of them could deny any longer, a new storm was gathering, one that threatened to undo everything she had built. Daniel's extended family, particularly his cousin, Barrister Emeka Williams, and his aunt, Lady Patience Williams, had long harbored expectations about Daniel's eventual marriage, expectations that involved wealth, social status, and family connections, not a former maid with no family name of significance. Lady Patience, sharp, calculating, asked Daniel, "This girl was cleaning floors a year ago. Have you considered what this will do to this family's reputation? What will our business partners think?" Daniel, firm and protective, responded, "Auntie, Amara has more integrity than anyone I have ever met in this family, including some of you. I will not apologize for choosing someone based on character rather than pedigree." When persuasion failed, Barrister Emeka and Lady Patience turned to more aggressive tactics. They began quietly spreading rumors through Lagos's elite social circles, claims that Amara had orchestrated the entire robbery incident herself, hiring the very attackers to stage a rescue that would win Daniel's sympathy and, eventually, his fortune. The rumors grew more elaborate and more damaging with each retelling. Some claimed Amara had a history of manipulating wealthy men. Others claimed she had fabricated her mother's illness entirely to gain sympathy. A particularly vicious blog post, later traced back to an associate paid by barrister Emeka, accused Amara of being a professional con artist who had targeted Daniel deliberately after researching his routine and vulnerabilities. The foundation's donors, uneasy about the controversy, began withdrawing support. Board members who had once praised Amara's leadership now questioned her position. Even some of the families she had helped began to wonder, poisoned by doubt, whether her kindness had ever been genuine. Daniel, furious and heartbroken by what his own family was doing, found himself facing an impossible pressure: continue defending Amara publicly and risk permanently fracturing his family, or distance himself to preserve peace and protect his business interests, potentially losing the woman whose courage had saved his life and whose integrity had transformed his understanding of what truly mattered. Barrister Emeka, emboldened by the chaos he had created, took the campaign a step further, filing a formal petition with the foundation's regulatory board, accusing Amara of financial mismanagement and demanding a full public inquiry into her leadership, a move designed not to uncover wrongdoing, but to destroy her reputation so thoroughly that no accusation, however false, could ever be fully erased. The regulatory hearing, held at a formal tribunal in Lagos, drew significant public attention. News cameras gathered outside. Amara's story, once a source of admiration, had become a spectacle, with public opinion sharply divided between those who believed in her integrity and those who had been convinced by the relentless smear campaign. If you have ever had your good name attacked by people who could not stand to see you rise, if you have ever had to defend your integrity in front of people determined to believe the worst about you, subscribe to this channel right now, because what happens in that courtroom will remind you that truth, no matter how fiercely attacked, always eventually finds its way into the light. Barrister Emeka presented his case first, an elaborate narrative built on circumstantial timing and manufactured testimony from a paid witness who claimed to have overheard Amara planning the robbery months in advance. For a moment, watching the confident presentation, even Amara's own legal team seemed uncertain of how to counter such a carefully constructed lie. Barrister Emeka, addressing the tribunal, confident, said, "This woman calculated every step of her supposed rescue. She researched Mr. Williams's routine, arranged for the robbery, and positioned herself as a hero, all to gain access to his fortune. We ask this tribunal to see through this elaborate deception." Then, Daniel Williams himself rose to speak, not as Amara's employer, not as her romantic partner, but as a witness to the truth that had shaped every moment of their story together. Daniel, standing before the tribunal, powerful and unwavering, said, "I have reviewed every piece of evidence in this so-called case." The paid witness Barrister Emeka relies upon has already recanted his statement to independent investigators, admitting he was compensated to lie. But beyond the evidence, I want this tribunal to understand something simpler. Amara never asked me for money. She never asked me for status. She never asked me for anything at all. When I offered her 50 million naira for saving my life, she refused it because she said accepting payment would make her courage feel like a transaction. Does that sound like a woman who orchestrated a robbery for financial gain? Daniel continued, emotional now. Amara Ezekwesili has spent the last 2 years using every resource I have given her to help others, doubling our foundation's reach, tripling our scholarship program, personally visiting families in the poorest corners of this state to ensure they receive medical care they could never otherwise afford. If this is deception, then I have never witnessed honesty in my entire life. The tribunal, presented with irrefutable evidence of Barrister Emeka's manipulation and Amara's consistent, verifiable record of selfless service, dismissed every accusation against her. Barrister Emeka himself faced immediate professional consequences, referred to the Nigerian Bar Association for disciplinary action over his fabrication of evidence. Outside the tribunal hall, as reporters gathered and well-wishers who had believed in Amara all along came to embrace her, Daniel took her hand and, in front of everyone, made a decision he had been quietly preparing for months. Daniel sincere. Before the gathered crowd said, Amara, from the night you saved my life, you have taught me more about integrity, courage, and genuine kindness than I learned in 38 years of building an empire. You never wanted my money. You never wanted my status. You only ever wanted to help people who needed it, the way you once needed help yourself. I am not asking you to be my maid, or my charity case, or even simply my girlfriend. I am asking you to build a future with me as my equal, my partner, and my wife. Amara, through tears, joyfully answered, yes, yes, Daniel, 1,000 times yes. Their wedding, held 3 months later at a beautiful garden estate in Lagos, brought together an unlikely gathering. Daniel's business associates and Lagos's social elite, sitting alongside the families Amara's foundation had helped. Market women who had once known her as simply the maid from Ikoyi, and her mother, Mama Blessing, healthier and stronger than she had been in over a decade, walking her daughter down the aisle with tears of overwhelming joy. Chief Maduike and Madam Chinelo were not invited. Barrister Emeka, disbarred and disgraced, watched the news of the wedding from a distance, a stark reminder of what greed and cruelty ultimately cost those who wielded them. This is the story of Amara Ezekwesili, a maid who risked her life for a stranger, refused payment for her courage, and in doing so, discovered a love and a purpose far greater than any reward money could have provided. Her journey reminds us that genuine kindness, offered without expectation, has a way of returning to us, multiplied beyond our imagination. If you are someone who has shown kindness without recognition, if you have been falsely accused despite your integrity, if you have ever wondered whether doing the right thing truly matters in a world that often rewards deception, Amara's story is your answer. It does matter. It always matters. This is the maid saved a rich man's life, but never expected his reward. Thank you for watching. May this story remind you that one act of genuine kindness has the power to change not just your own life, but the lives of everyone who witnesses it.